Do you want to know more about UFC Vegas 66 coming your way this Saturday night, headlined by Jared Cannonier and Sean Strickland? I'm going to go through the card. I'm going to pick out 3 or 4 fights that interest me because of the fighters or because of the matchup. You'll get a lot of information on both of the fighters involved in each matchup that I pick, and the information there, you'll learn a lot more about the fighters, and it will just make it a more enjoyable experience for you to watch on Saturday night. Sound good? Stay with me for the Burt Locker Casuals Guide to UFC Vegas 66. I'm going to be taking a look at David Dvorak versus Manel Kape. Now, the tail of the tape, you've got both these guys at 5'5". They're both roughly around the same weight. Their reach is more or less identical, half an inch in it. You've got a couple of inches of leg reach for Manel Kape. Now, my thoughts on this one are that sorry, let me just get the right info over there. So, my thoughts on this one. Last fight for Dvorak, Giancarlo Ronderos. Got to bear in mind that Giancarlo Ronderos in that fight was a late replacement, so take all of that with a pinch of salt. But he did look really good. So, my summary of Dvorak, he's got great outside leg kicks. He does kick the outside leg really well. He's got very quick submission attacks, especially from scrambles. And you saw that in the Giancarlo fight. He stunned him on the feet, where he grabbed the neck. He goes for simple, high percentage moves, which is good because those are the ones that are usually going to come off. He throws his strike straight down the middle. He's got a nice overhand right, but the overhand right is something that he uses quite a lot, which can be both a good thing and a bad thing. But my summary of Manel Kape, he's got great head movement, unbelievable head movement actually. He's got diverse striking. You see the flying knee against Ode Osborne. His lead left hook, that's the real problem here for his opponents. His lead left hook is extremely fast. He's got very light movement. He moves in and out an awful lot. And he does tend to take a lot of shots, but his chin does usually hold up. So his last win was a very impressive win over Zhumagulov as well. He got him. Zhumagulov is the guy from Kazakhstan, I believe. He's very, very tough. Been around for a while. It was a big win, possibly, arguably the biggest win so far for Manel Kape. He started off the combo with a left hook and just literally just started teeing off on him, and the combo was almost perfect. It was brilliant. It was so fluid. So once he smells blood, he will pour it on and he will look to put you away. So for me, whilst I do like Manel Kape here, he does tend to go for the high reward, lower percentage moves, like your flying knees, those kind of things, the more kind of flashy attacks, because his striking range is a lot more diverse. It just is. He's just one of those very high level strikers that knows how to do a lot of shit. Dvorak tends to be more bread and butter, but he has a higher success rate percentage wise. Kape's chin should help him here because he will likely eat that overhand right that I noted that Dvorak does like to throw. But his head movement and counters will set up that left hook, the very, very fast left hook that is a problem. In the scrambles, I'd say it's advantage for Dvorak. He'll grab the neck and as we all know, 90% of submissions come from the neck. So look, it's a high percentage move. He goes for the high percentage submissions. And so I'd say see what odds you can get on the submission for Dvorak, because it is something that he does quite well. And, if he does clip Manel Kape with that overhand right and he causes a scramble, he will grab that neck and he will get that submission. For me, my money is going to be going on Manel Kape. He's coming off 2 knockout wins in a row. I think he adds a third here. I think the lead left hook most likely is the one that gets it done. Or if you look for that flying knee, because Dvorak does tend to drop his head as he's throwing that overhand right that he really likes to throw. So for me, I'm taking Manel Kape by knockout. The odds will come up later because the odds aren't actually on for that fight yet. And then the next fight I'm looking at in the middleweight division, Julian, the Cuban Missile Crisis Marquez, taking on Deron Winn. And that one is going to be over on my Patreon. So if you would like to see the breakdown of that fight, could you kindly head over to my Patreon? Much appreciated. So then you've got Drew Dober taking on Bobby Green. This is a really, really interesting fight at lightweight. Absolutely loving this. So you've got leg reach in favour of Green. It could help with leg kicks early on. And Green is also taller by 2 inches. That's the only kind of really disparities on the tail of the tape. Now, Drew Dober, he's put a few wins together. He always does. He puts a few wins together, and then you see on his record he either runs into like a Beneil Dariush or an Islam Makhachev, and there's really no shame in losing to either one of those guys. They are 2 of the elite fighters in the division. He also dropped a decision to Brad Riddell, who's also an elite kickboxer. He's very, 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 very good. So the real question is Bobby Green at that elite level? That question is going to be kind of answered here tonight, isn't it? It's well, tonight on Saturday night. And one thing I would say is that Drew Dober can take a shot. If you look at what happened in the Terence McKinney fight, like McKinney absolutely smashed him early on, smashed him. Drew weathered all of that. He weathered the storm, and he was able to come back and use his physicality, because that's one weapon that Drew Dober has got. He's very big and very physical for 155. You look at the state of him, he is jacked. He is so jacked. He's thicker than a Snickers. So he's big and physical for 155. He covers distance very well, actually. And he's got very big power and quite light feet for somebody who throws with as much power as he does. He's got excellent wrestling as well, both defensive and offensive. And the only problem is he does tend to get hit a lot. Again, I'll draw you back to McKinney. McKinney was very close to getting him out of there. Bobby Green, he's got excellent boxing, and he likes to box as well. He enjoys it. He really, once he starts getting a rhythm going, he starts feeling himself. He's a confidence fighter. You don't want a confidence Bobby Green going in there against you, because he will light you up. Notable wins, he's got Raging Ally Quinta and Nate Haqparast. Now, Haqparast, that was a good win. He's the one that looks a lot like Kelvin Gastelum. Now, the weapon that Bobby Green uses most, as I said, is his boxing, and he uses volume. He uses volume, and he's got roughly a 50% accuracy on those strikes, which is actually pretty good. So my summary here, Drew Dober, he's very hard to put away, but he does start slow, which is a problem. I think if Bobby Green gets this done, it's going to be a TKO relatively early, or possibly a decision if he's done enough damage in the first round. Drew Dober could very easily weather that early storm, though, and he uses his physical nature just to take over this one. I'm going to be rolling the dice on Drew Dober here. I think that he usually looks pretty good against guys that aren't quite in the elite tier of the lightweight division. And with the greatest of respect to Bobby Green, I'm not quite sure he's in that elite tier just yet. Who knows, maybe this is the start of a run into the elite tier. But I'm going to take Drew Dober by decision. I think he weathers an early storm and then takes over in rounds 2 and 3, winning a 29-27 decision. So, yeah. Then you've got the co-main event. Really interesting fight this. I'm looking forward to it. Arman Tsarukyan versus Damir Ismagulov. Now, the tail of the tape here, you've got Ismagulov. He's got 3 inches in height and about 1.5 inches in reach. Tsarukyan's coming in at 18-3. Ismagulov's coming in at 24-1. Tsarukyan, he is the dark horse of the division, in my opinion. You saw his fight against Mateusz Gamrot. Whilst he lost that fight, it was a sensational fight. Go back and watch that fight. Mateusz Gamrot versus Arman Tsarukyan, it was just insane. Just the ground transitions, the striking, the speed, just everything about it was absolutely fantastic. He's got great in and out movement, Tsarukyan. His grappling transitions are, quite frankly, off the charts. Like, he's so fast on those ground transitions. Nice low kicks, because he welcomes the grappling, and he's very free in the striking as a result of not being worried about the grappling. He welcomes it, in fact. His ground transitions, like I said, they're absolutely relentless. If you have a look at the Alvarez fight, he just used those ground transitions. There was nothing Alvarez could do, and Alvarez is a pretty decent grappler. Submissions are his bread and butter. So for him to be able to use those transitions and just make Alvarez look as average as he did was very interesting. You've got to watch those short elbows as well. One thing I like about Tsarukyan, he doesn't mind being in the guard, because he will beat you up from there. Very similar to what Ortiz used to do back in the day. He would beat people up from guard. Tsarukyan does the same thing. He lands elbows from guard as well, and God help you if he gets you into side control, or even worse than that, mount. Those elbows are going to just absolutely destroy you. But from guard, He beats people up. Ismagulov, lovely jab. He jabs to both the body and to the head. He likes to mix up those attacks, which is it's good because it keeps the opponents guessing. The body jab often sets up the feint for the takedown as well, and then leaves openings for the takedowns because his opponents just don't know, is he throwing a jab to the body or is he actually shooting for a takedown? And it masks his attacks very well. His overhand right is very, very nice as well. Again, usually he'll go to the body a few times and then you see the overhand right coming over the top because people are lowering their guards because they're tired of taking those body shots. He moves very well. It's all behind the jab. He sets everything up behind the jab, which is basic, but I like it. The jab is an underused weapon. Well, it's not as underused as it used to be, but he's quite heavy on the back foot, leaves him quite well balanced. He doesn't tend to overextend himself. On the odd occasion that he does, it's usually when he's throwing the overhand right after throwing a combination, and he'll finish with the overhand right. He has left himself off balance a few times on that. So in summary, this is an interesting fight. It's both a very high level. I'll give the edge in grappling to Tsarukyan. On the feet, Tsarukyan might have to be careful of Ismagulov because he mixes his attacks very well, as I said. The body and overhand right over the top because of the switch, he actually generates quite a lot of power in the overhand right because he goes into the body and then the overhand right comes over, and it's almost like the opposite movements just generate a lot of power. So he's going to have to watch for that. But I do think Tsarukyan's quite crafty on the feet himself. I think he's going to see those coming, in all honesty. And he's not going to be worried about the takedown shots because he welcomes the grappling. So the body jab feinting the takedown is not going to be nearly as effective for Ismagulov in this fight. I would say that the problem for Ismagulov is he needs to be careful not to overextend because Tsarukyan, he will punish him for that because he's very quick on the feet. I do think Ismagulov will at some point overextend himself with that right hand over the top. And Tsarukyan, as I said, I think he's crafty enough to see that coming. I think that when that happens, I could see Tsarukyan quite easily taking Ismagulov's back and getting the takedown from the back. From there, he's either got the submissions, or if Ismagulov wants to not give up his back, he's going to have to give up the front. The problem is you give up the front and Tsarukyan's going to punish you there as well. We've seen him absolutely destroy people from guard. So if he gets him into side control or anything like that, he's going to punish him with short elbows and it's going to be an absolute beatdown. I'm going to take Tsarukyan by decision here, but I think it's going to be a messy one if he's able to get Ismagulov to the ground. Interesting fight though, interesting fight. Very, very high level mixed martial arts in that one. Keep an eye on it. Then you've got the main event, Jared Cannonier versus Sean Strickland. You've got Jared Cannonier coming in at 15-6, Sean Strickland 25-4. Taylor tape, so you've got 5'11", fighting 6'1". So Jared Cannonier 5'11", Sean Strickland, the taller man, 6'1". You've got a reach advantage in favour of the shorter man, being Cannonier at 1.5 inches. So Jared Cannonier, he's a former heavyweight, right? He's fought all the way down to middleweight at this point. He's big and he's strong. He is so powerful. You got to keep an eye on that power. He throws very big power, both on the feet and on the ground. You've got to watch that ground and pound. The ground and pound is some of the nastiest that you will see anywhere. Go back and check out the Derek Brunson fight for those short elbows. It was horrible. He's got devastating leg kicks as well. That's what he stopped Anderson Silva with. Nice inside leg kicks. He throws with a lot of power. He throws everything with power, in all honesty. His gas tank could be an issue here, depending on the pace of the fight. When Cannonier fights at his pace, he's fine. But the problem is, Strickland usually dictates the pace of the fight, and it's usually a high pace. I don't know, Cannonier, I'm not saying Cannonier's unfit, but when you look at his frame, like there's just a lot of blood to get to a lot of muscles, and that kind of frame does tire more quickly. It just does. He does pick his shots generally though. He usually strikes about 3.73 per minute, which is moderate, but he lands at a 51% clip, which is actually relatively good. In his last fight, he seemed very tentative against Adesanya, but I don't think he respects Sean Strickland in the same way that he respects Adesanya. But maybe he should, because let's take a look at Sean Strickland here. He is a nasty fighter. He's pure and simple. He just likes to hurt people. And weirdly, he does, because he's got a weird kind of power. Like, he's got a similar power to like Jamal Hill, where people change when he hits them. When Sean Strickland is really like winning fights, he's feeling himself. Like, his strikes aren't like your typical like big knockout like strikes, but when he hits people, he hurts them. Jamal Hill does a similar thing. Like, you just see people's demeanour change when Sean Strickland starts hitting them. Now, he also puts on a really good pace, 5.54 strikes per minute with a 40% accuracy, but he can afford to miss because he's not throwing everything behind them. He's loose, he's flowing, he's not like, he's not loading up on each punch. He's just loose and he flows, and that's going to be really, really useful for him in this fight because it's a stark opposite, quite frankly, of what Cannonier generally does. Now, he can be susceptible to power shots. We saw that against Alex Pereira, but he's smaller frame-wise than Cannonier. But Cannonier is not the monster that Pereira is. He just isn't. So this is a completely different kettle of fish, really. Now, Strickland can occasionally get outpowered physically, like we saw that against Kamaru Usman, because you've got to bear in mind Sean Strickland used to fight at 170 pounds as well. Jared Cannonier is not getting down to 170. I wouldn't have thought. He'd have to cut his leg off. It's ridiculous. And if Cannonier gets on top of you, that's going to be a real problem for anybody. So in summary, for me, this one's fun. Both men, because they respect their current opponent less. I think Strickland respects Cannonier a lot less than he respects Pereira, and vice versa. Now, that could be a detriment to both of these fighters if they find out, oh, I should have respected him more. So the power advantage definitely goes to Cannonier. His wrestling as well, probably, although he doesn't tend to use wrestling a lot in the scrambles, when he knocks people down, when he gets on top of them, it's a real issue. The higher volume will go in favour of Strickland, as will the cardio. So, as long as Strickland can avoid taking those power shots, and he needs to avoid the fence, not avoid being on the fence, but the fence is lava to him, because he needs to stop Cannonier from cutting the cage off. Movement is Strickland's friend in this fight, and it usually is. So, we saw what Cannonier did to Jack Hermansson, and that was because he didn't finish him against the cage, but he just cut off enough of the octagon so that he was able to throw and knew that Hermansson didn't have anywhere to move back to. Strickland must avoid that because those power shots are nothing to be messed around with. So I think that Strickland, he spars so much that I don't see him being bullied by Cannonier. I don't see him being pushed up against the fence. I think he's going to be quite elusive. I think he's going to be able to evade a lot of those. I think he's going to be able to keep position and avoid and keep to a space where he can throw that volume and keep the fight going at his pace. I think that pace will really hurt Cannonier. I think around the third round, late in the third round, you're going to see Cannonier really start to fade. Strickland's going to pour on strong. I feel like he's going to get the TKO knockout anytime after the third round. I'm going to pick round 4. That is my pick, but this is an interesting fight. Do you know what I mean? Because like I said, you cannot sleep on that power of Cannonier. I am looking forward to this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. A great fight to finish off the year 2022 with, and I'll be recapping these next week to see how my picks went and just see how the fights went in general. See what's next for the fighters. So I do 2 of these a week. If you could just hit that subscribe button. Much appreciated. And until next time, keep those odds long and those bets terrible.